This video is now in session, and Germany will soon go through an election of the Bundestag, or I'm not quite sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but the Bundestag is practically like it's like the U.S. equivalent, or the German equivalent, I should say, of the U.S. House of Representatives, or if you're in Britain, the British House of Commons. So with the entire Bundestag up, which is the legislative body, this election will be very important for Germany as they're dealing with a crisis, and they're no longer going to have Angela Merkel. Angela Merkel announced in the last term in 2017 that she would be stepping down as chancellor, or as the leader of the Christian Democratic Union, and that she will not run for re-election for the position of chancellor of Germany. And that's significant because she has been the chancellor of Germany since 2005, overseeing multiple U.S. presidents and as well as multiple British prime ministers. So now that she's not going to be running for a re-election, this represents a monumental time for German politics, because it's a decision of the German public as to whether they want change or whether they want to keep the status quo with Armin Laschet. And Armin Laschet was elected the leader of the Christian Democratic Union to replace Angela Merkel. Originally was Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer, but she resigned after a crisis occurred where the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, or the Alternative for Germany, was able to gain a majority, I believe. Where's the crisis? Yeah, because she did have to step down because of the AfD. The AfD, for those who don't know, they are a populist right-wing party, and they are almost to a point of neo-Nazism. They're representing the resurgence of neo-Nazi interests, and as well as the rise of the Reich. And if you don't know the Reich means is a colloquial term for or at least the Third Reich is the colloquial term for Nazi Germany. And there are a lot of people in Germany who want Nazi Germany to come back, who certainly have not read history, and they want history to repeat itself again. And that's why this crisis occurred, where the AfD got so many seats in the Thuringian government to the point where the AfD actually participated in a majority coalition with the FDP and as well as the CDU. And with these three parties combined, they were able to get a majority in the government. But the CDU vowed to never partner with the AfD. But the AfD was able to trick the CDU into having the CDU participate with the AfD in a majority government. And how German governments work is that once you have a certain amount of once the election is over and the seats are allocated, the majority party has to create a coalition with a couple of other parties in order to get a majority. And it doesn't necessarily actually have to be the majority party that creates the coalition. It just has to be a party that manages to create a majority coalition in order to get the majority say in government. And that led to the FDP partnering with the CDU, and the FDP partnering with the AfD, and Annegret Kramp-Karrenbauer had to step down, and she was succeeded by Armin Laschet, who is now the leader of the Christian Democratic Union. But he represents the status quo. In terms of all the other candidates, there are a lot of other candidates that are running for the same as 2017 in terms of the party list. You have the SPD, the Socialist Democratic Party, and they represent the center-left wing of government. The CDU and the CSU coalition represent the center-right wing of the political spectrum in Germany. And then you also have the AfD, as we mentioned before, the Alternative for Deutschland, who is incredibly far to the right and wants to. And in terms of policies, they want to restrict immigration. They want to start backing out of the European Union. They want to be more isolationist. They want to go more towards the policies of Nazi Germany, and it's gotten pretty bad to the point where the CDU, to the point where Angela Merkel in Germany has had to investigate the AfD multiple times, and it's interesting to see how they do in this election, because if the AfD does continue to gain seats, that represents a very bad shift for European politics, and that represents a very terrifying shift for the rest of the world, as we've seen multiple times how Germany has gotten incredibly nationalistic and has started world wars from those nationalist sentiments. So the AfD, even though they're not projected as of now based on Poland to gain that many seats, if any, they have the third most amount of seats, and in 2017 they were one of the few parties that actually gained seats. The major party that gained seats, 94 from 0 seats in the last election in 2013, and they were able to have garnered 12.6% of the vote. So that's the AfD. Now the FDP party is a center party. They are led by Christian Lindner, and they have made coalitions, or the CDU has coalesced with the FDP before, and the SPD has also partnered with the FDP before in order to create a majority government. And even though it says that they represent center to center right, ultimately they're practically at the center of the party. They're a little bit more conservative than the SPD on economics, and a little bit more liberal than the SDU on the social political side. So the FDP is a pretty small party, but their seats, which right now are a total of 80 seats, they're enough to create a majority government for either the CDU or the SPD, who represent the establishment wing of the Bundestag. And then now we have these two parties. First we have the left, and the left is practically, I guess, the opposite of the AfD. They are very much wanting to go back to the socialist and communist policies of Eastern Germany during the Cold War, when they were occupied by the Soviet Union. And they are they even though they're a minority party, they have a lot of control over the Eastern German politics, and even though they're not going to be a big factor in this election, they can take seats away from other parties, most notably the CDU, and as well as the AfD, because even though the AfD and the left party are opposite on the political spectrum, they are both populist parties, and populism in a lot of cases trumps the ideology of politics. Take Donald Trump for an example. A lot of left-leaning independents in the Rust Belt voted for Obama in 2012, but voted for Trump in 2016 because he was a populist. And that is the same justification. That's the same kind of thing that is expected to happen here, which is some level of competitiveness between the left and the AfD. And then finally, we have Annalena Baerbock, and this is the main party to look out for. Even though the Green Party has the least amount of seats out of these 6 parties in the Bundestag, they are expected to gain a lot of seats. They are expected to surpass the SPD and be in the majority, and be in the plurality of the opposition government. If Armin Laschet turns out to actually win this election, which is happening on September 26th. And the reason why Baerbock is actually has a chance of doing well in this election is because of the crises that Germany has faced in the past several years, most notably climate change. If you've been hearing the news lately, then you've known that Germany has gone through a very devastating flooding in the Rhineland. And the Rhineland is this area where Dusseldorf and Cologne are, and it's where the Rhine River goes through. And a lot of people, more than 160 people by now, have died because of the flooding, and more are expected to pass away because of the effects of the flooding. And it's really unfortunate for Germany, but also represents a dire consequence of not paying attention to the effects of global warming. And a lot of parties, and the Green Party has kind of rode that wave throughout this entire election, where they want more environmentally friendly policies, they want more friendly, generally speaking, friendly policies. And even though the Green Party is not that big in the United States, around the world, the Green Party is a lot bigger, where they represent pacifist views. They represent peaceful views, less authoritarian and more libertarian. And then they also represent environmentalism, where they want more environmentally friendly policies, which is a lot of what Germany wants at this moment, which is why the Green Party, currently speaking, polls second in comparison to the rest of the parties. You can see here that they actually, for a short period of time, surpassed the SPD, not the SPD, the CDU and the CSU in general polling, in opinion polling, before going back down. Now, the Green Party would be doing better right now, but the main kryptonite, I guess, about the Green Party is that Annalena Baerbock is not the best kind of candidate to run. She suffers from a lot of the political egotism disease that a lot of other politicians suffer, which is that Baerbock and the Green Party elevate herself, artificially elevates herself to the point where a lot of the achievements that Baerbock has listed and the Green Party has listed about her have been proven untrue or have been disproven. So with that, Annalena Baerbock, in several setbacks, a lot of people, especially Armin Laschet, are now criticizing the Green Party for not being serious, especially for Baerbock not being serious about the job of Chancellor and about the job of representing environmental views. And as a result, the CDU is essentially arguing that the Green is not prepared to carry out environmentalist policies, while Armin Laschet, who has been in government for many years, has proven himself to be an effective politician and can actually represent the views of environmentalists, which is why after the German flooding, he was quick to point out the effects of climate change correlating with the flooding of the Rhineland, the flooding of the Rhine River. So with that, even though the CDU is going a little bit more to the left in environmentalist views, they have to be, because they have to provide a strong opposition to Annalena Baerbock, who currently represents the major opposition force in the 2021 election. Now, you may be wondering why Olaf Scholz, who represents the establishment left party, is not actually that competitive in this election. And the reason why is it's indicative of most left-wing parties in Europe in the 21st century, where they have been in decline for the past several decades, because they've been in government for so long, and now they're being replaced by either center-right or right-wing parties throughout Europe. And Germany is another example of that. The SPD, even though they're center-left and they're not too radical, a lot of people simply want something that's better than the SPD, because the SPD, for the longest of time, has been partnering with the CDU in a grand coalition. And while that may make for good policy and compromising policies that fit both views into bills, into legislation, a lot of left-wing Germans don't want the SPD to keep going with a grand coalition with the CDU and constantly being the minority party, constantly being an opposition party instead of being the leader in a majority coalition. So that's why they want someone like Annalena Baerbock and the Green Party to actually do well in this election, and it's expected that a lot of SPD members are going to shift over to the Greens in the 2021 election. Now, in terms of how German elections work, they have two kinds of seat results. They have constituency seats and the list seat result. So the constituency seats, they're similar to how the U.S. House of Representatives currently works, which is where each part of the country is represented by a member, and districts and boundaries are drawn so that it can be somewhat proportional. But Germany also has a list seat result, which deviates from U.S. politics. So what list seat results do is that when you go to the polls in Germany, you have two questions. First, who do you want represent in your district in the constituency seat, and then who do you want to do well as a whole in Germany? And some people vote differently for these two results. They might vote for the CDU candidate in their constituency seat, but for the list seat, they might vote for the AFD. And as a result, you have the list seat results that go out proportionally based on voting in each area. So in each congregation, you can see here that there's Bavaria, and then there's other Brandenburg and Berlin, as well as other places in other governments in Germany, and that's how they're separated. And then based on the votes in each part of each section of those governments, I guess, then it then goes proportionally to the parties. So say, for example, in Bavaria, this is not going to be a true example in real life, but let's just say that the CSU gets 50% of the vote in the list seat results, and then the AFD gets the other 50%. So with that, the list seat results would be split half and half for the CSU and as well as the AFD. And then from there, this CSU has a list of candidates that they get to choose, not the people, but not Germany, not the German public, but the parties themselves gets to choose, and then they rank them, and then for each section of Germany. And then from there, based on the amount of seats that they get, they then go through that list and then elect those people into those list seat results, which is why you see a lot of members, a lot of leaders in Germany having list seats. For example, Alice Weidel and Tino Chrupalla, both of them have list seats. Actually, it seems like Tino Chrupalla does not have a list seat, but a constituency seats. But it's usually rare to see a leader having a constituency seat. Meanwhile, for the rest of the candidates, Christian Lindner represents North Rhine and Westphalia of the list seat, and then the Left Party also represents the list seats, and then Annalena Baerbock, the leader, is also from a list seat in Brandenburg. So that's how German elections work, and that's how the 2021 German election is going at this moment. If we look at the polls a little bit further, you can see that the SPD is in third, according to Poland as of now, and then the FDP is in fourth, the AFD is in fifth, and the left is in sixth. And you can see at the very beginning, the Green Party was actually at a pretty low point, but they have started to gain in popularity because of local elections throughout between 2017 and 2021, and they have gained in popularity and gained in Poland. So now they're becoming more of an established party in national German politics. You can see that they're rising to second overall, and you can see that they're taking some of the votes away from the SPD, but they're also taking some votes away from both from the AfD, and that's good for the establishment of Germany. You can see here that the SPD has declined steadily, and then in addition to the AfD also declining, and then you can also see that the Greens helped take both of those vote shares and then rise to second place in terms of Poland. And you can see that the Greens are becoming a more establishment kind of party. But a fun fact here is that if you combine the Green and the SPD parties together, the amount of people who would support both, then those two, I believe, would be further than the CDU, which is not surprising for European politics as a whole, because even though Europe is dominated by left-wing politics, the left-wing coalitions in many European governments are fractured, as in they're split in different parties. Meanwhile, the conservative parties in a lot of European countries, including Germany, are all in one coalition, like the CDU, and then the conservatives of Britain, and in Holland, and in other countries. So that's just a fun fact, but that's most likely how Armin Laschet is going to get elected. As of now, Laschet seems like he's going to become the next Chancellor of Germany, but Annalena Baerbock could prove to be an upset for a lot of parties, for all five of these parties, by gaining the most amount of seats of any party in this election. But we'll just have to see. The election is only it's only 3 or 4 months away. No, it's not 3 or 4 months away. It's only 2 months away. But yeah, that just makes the election more and more competitive. So that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This video is now adjourned, and I'll see you in the next one.